Okay, in this lesson, we are going to be learning two new chords, and these are they're tough chords, but they're chords that you probably by now, if you've been trying to learn some songs on your own, have found out that you really need to know. One of them is an F major chord, which is crucial in the key of C, which a lot of songs are written in the key of C. It's the 4 chord. It's the subdominant chord in the key of C. So, it's kind of a tough chord to play. I'm going to show you kind of the easiest way to play it at the beginning, and later down the road we're going to learn a couple other ways to play it, but for now we're going to learn it this way. We're going to take our third finger and put it on the 3rd fret of the D string. That is our F, that's our root note. Okay, then we're going to take our 2nd finger, put it on the 2nd fret of the G string. That's our A, that's our 3rd. Then we're going to put our 1st finger. Our 1st finger is going to be on the 1st fret of the B string. That's our C, that's our 5th. Okay, now, you could just play the chord like that, but you'd have to be careful not to bump the high E string. That makes a different chord. That makes what's called an F major 7. That's adding the 7th interval onto the chord, which is a cool chord, but we want it to just be an F major for now. So you can play it like that, or the way to really, you want to get used to playing it is what's called barring. So we're going to bar 2 strings with the same finger. So if you bar the 1st fret of the B string and the high E string with your 1st finger like that. So just kind of practice playing those 2 strings, make sure they sound out. Now try putting your 2nd finger back on the A on the G string, the 2nd fret. You really have to arch this finger, and it's going to take you some time getting used to having one finger flat and the other one arched. Now try putting your 3rd finger back on the 3rd fret of the D string. That is our F major chord. Now, my thumb is on the very back of the neck. You can, if it's easier for you like that, you can do that. You just have to experiment with where your thumb is on the neck. So practice arpeggiating that. This is going to take a lot of time and practice. For a lot of people, this takes time. It doesn't come real easy. So again, you bar the B and high E string with your 1st finger, then you arch your 2nd finger onto the 2nd fret of the G string, your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the D string. And that's your F chord. Now the cool thing about this chord, once you can do it, is it's a movable chord. You can move it up the neck, and wherever your 3rd finger is your root note, and you'll always be playing a major chord. So there's F. If I need an F sharp major chord, you just slide it up one so that your 3rd finger is on F sharp. Now we have an F sharp major. You can play a G major this way. We have our G major open chord, but you could also play a G major chord here. It's just what's called a different voicing. Slide it up. There's A sharp major, A major, B flat major, B major, and so on. So you could use the same exercise we used to get used to playing a C chord doing this. You could come down here to the 8th fret, and you could play it where your fingers don't have to stretch as far. And you could practice slowly going back, stretching your fingers out until you get to your F major chord. Okay, so you can play a couple different progressions once you get that down. In the key of C. it goes well with our C and our G chords. So now you know the 3 major chords in the key of C, which are C, F, and G, and you know the 3 minor chords that are in the key of C, which is D minor, E minor, and A minor. So I would encourage you to experiment with those 6 chords. Try to make up some chord progressions of your own. Now there's another chord that's kind of a tough chord that's common, and you need to know this one too. It's a B chord. There's no good way to play a B chord as an open chord. So I'll show you how to play it a couple different ways. If you take our A major chord that we learned, we played it like this. We played it with our first finger on the 2nd fret of the D string, our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the B string. We played all the strings except the low E string. I want you to play the same thing, but we're going to use a little bit different fingers. We're going to use our pinky on the 2nd fret of the B string, our 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. Okay, still have our A major chord. Now you can kind of slide this up. If you slide this up to the 4th fret, and just pick the D, the G, and the B string. That makes a B major triad. We have an F sharp where our 2nd finger is, which is our 5th. We have our B where our 3rd finger is. And we have a D sharp where our pinky is. That's our 3rd. So to B major, our root is just not on the bottom. It's not the first note we're strumming. But it still makes a B major triad. So you can play a B major like that. You just have to be careful to only hit these 3 strings. It's not very full. It's kind of weak sounding. You can add your if you can make this stretch and add your 1st finger to the 2nd fret of the A string, now you can put the root note back on the bottom of the chord. It sounds a little fuller. And that's a B major. You can also use your 1st finger and bar all these strings on the 2nd fret. Then you can play, you'll be barring the 2nd fret right here of the high E string, and that's F sharp. It's our 5th again. Then you can play all 5 strings. So try a little bit of each. Get this down. Then try to just get the root note on the 2nd fret of the A string. Then try barring all these strings. See if you can get that F sharp on the high E string. That one's really tough. That's also movable. As you move that up, wherever your 1st finger is the root note. So that's B major. You can play a C major here, C sharp, D. Really tough chord to get used to. Now I'm going to show you one other way to play it. You'd start by basically playing a power chord on B. That's the 2nd fret of the A string. Then, instead of barring with your 1st finger, we're going to bar these 3 strings here that we were playing with our 3 fingers. We're going to just bar them with our 3rd finger. So the key to barring is making your finger flat and not, you want to avoid doing that. You want to kind of almost like you're taking this finger and you're bending it the opposite way a little bit. So you bar those. Just kind of practice arpeggiating. Make sure you got all those notes sounding out. Then you put your 1st finger back on B, the 2nd fret of the A string. Now when you form the chord like that, you got to be careful not to hit the high E string, because then it makes a different chord. So you're just picking the 4 strings in the middle. Again, this is movable up the neck. It's always a major chord. The root note is wherever your first finger is. So that's another way to play a B. That's kind of the way I play it most of the time. It's a little bit easier than that. Although that's has the advantage of you getting the 5th on the high E string. So experiment with those and see what you come up with. When you get one down, we'll try a chord progression. So let's take our B chord and apply it to a chord progression. We're going to start with the B. Then we're going to go to the A. Then we're going to go to our E major. For 2 bars. So this is a 5, 4, 1, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just using quarter notes there. So the B is the 5th degree of E major. So that forms our 5 chord, or our dominant chord. So this is the dominant chord of E. The A is the subdominant, the 4. And the E is the tonic. You could also go 5, 4, 1, back to the 4. Okay, so that's our lesson on B and F major chords.